Hello and welcome to From Dreams to Reality, a Business Tale podcast interview series. And I am your host, Jerry Covella. Buckle up because today we have an incredible business person. I'm joined by Peter Sacco, president of PTS Data Center Solutions, headquartered in Oakland, New Jersey. Pete, welcome and thank you so much for joining us, my friend. How
Thanks,
about you
Jerry.
kick off the conversation by telling us a bit about yourself and your cutting edge business?
Sure. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate you having me on. And so, the core, I always believe in getting to the point, quickly. So the main company which launched it all is a company today that's called PTS Data Center Solutions. And while I've founded it and I've owned it for 26 years, its core business is designing and building data centers. Now, that sounds, like it's relevant today because it very much is. But let me tell you, it hasn't always been rosy, right? We've been doing this long enough that a data center used to be something when every company had a data center. And then we went through, everybody went to co-location, nobody wanted to own a data center. Then there was cloud, where everybody really didn't want to own a data center. And then we kind of migrated back to a hybrid environment where a little bit of my stuff was in my data center, a little bit of stuff was in co-location, a little bit of stuff was in the cloud. And today, AI caught the data center industry completely off guard, and we're probably busier right now. And in fact, my revenue right now is 3 times what it was last year, and we're probably going to double that next year. We build data centers and facilities. We do IT build outs specifically for AI. My primary customer is the federal government. However, I do a lot of work for some large global names, largest being people like Pfizer. Then a whole bunch of large and medium companies of products that you've all known, people like Chico's and Wakefern here in New Jersey, and lots of universities and lots of hospitals, and all the people who are still running data centers. But along the way, that company, got big enough, and we branched it into a couple different divisions. So today, PTS Data Center Solutions is really the holding company for a couple divisions. That data center division moved to a company called Intuva. Intuva, kind of a play on intuitive, right? And Intuva today is the brand that does all of the data center design and construction. So if you look behind the curtain, you basically see architects, engineers, full engineers, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, civil, structural, and construction managers. And so we basically could put a shovel in the ground and build a building from the ground up. Much more prevalently, we're building lots of modification. And in fact, a big growth area right now is the data center operators. So yes, I work for people like Google, but I'm not the guy who's building the giant behemoth, what we call hyperscale data centers. I do spot work for people like Google. But for people like CyrusOne, one of the larger data center operators and managed hosting providers in the country, I do a lot of work for them all over the country. And so we do a fair amount of design, build, construction throughout the United States and a fair amount of consulting internationally. Spinning out of that company, I have another division called Grid 7 Energy. That company is focused on design building microgrids. And microgrids is relevant because in the United States, the data center industry is building out in what I refer to as the American pro football cities, right? New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, Dallas, so on. And so what's happening with that is it's running out of power. And so we don't have a power production problem in the United States. We have a power distribution and storage problem. And so the question is, how do I get the power from where it's generated to where it goes? Well, the answer is we can't. So what we do is we opportunistically combine power sources. That's what microgridding is. And so they might be solar plus electric plus wind energy, plus maybe we have lots of natural gas. And so I could use a solid state fuel cell from somebody like Bloom Energy, or I could use a linear generator technology and I could convert a hydrocarbon or natural gas into electricity and combine it to make a very resilient, cost-effective solution. And of course, since I have these two pretty big companies, we had an internal IT department. Well, that got big enough that eventually friends and families were saying, hey, Pete, you run these two companies, do you want to run my company's IT too? Because we hate doing it. And so it started with friends and family, but today in Spirica, kind of inspiring and progressive IT, data, and cybersecurity management, every good practice that I use for IT for my companies, we now do for a host of a couple dozen companies. And so all three of those, I'm lucky enough to say, are pretty much in growth mode right now. And so that's exciting. But my as we've talked about before, my interests don't lie just with the companies that I have founded, and so we've got a lot of special things going on.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll hear more about everything else you're doing too,
Sure.
Pete. But I'm amazed to hear what you're doing and how you are entrenched in what are truly very, very important aspects of life right now in America or in the world, right? I mean, you're
You
talking
know,
about data management and you're talking about
AI,
Mhm.
AI, if I could be so bold, and the founder of Google recently came out and said that AI will be akin to electricity, and I think he's 100% correct. Um, the average American, the average person in the world, I don't think quite realizes yet the impact that AI is going to have on humanity. Forget about man, right? Let's humanity as a whole. If AI was a 24-hour clock, we are only at about 2 a.m. So we have 22 hours of development to go. And when I say it is going to be transformational, when AI is done, man will be relegated to what he really is, a frail, fallible machine that can barely improve his hardware and can barely improve his software. We will no longer be the smartest kid on the block by far region. And so that's going to change everything. And so later on, when we talk about my book, that's the reason why why I'm writing the book in general. But AI right now to the data center industry is changing everything. It's amazing to me, as sophisticated as we are, AI, we weren't even talking chat GPT 3 years ago. Now it's everywhere, right? And all of the manifestations of those, of large language models. So we are chock full of building AI and HPC, high performance computing blocks everywhere. And so the data center industry, in order to realize that next 22 hours of AI growth, the world is not going to need a few more data centers. It's going to need a whole bunch more data centers. And since the data center world is really carved up into the hyperscale data centers, the regional colocation data centers, and edge data centers, people ask me all the time, well, what type of data centers are the world going to need? And the answer is all of them, right? And I give them the analogy that when the circus tent goes up, all parts of the tent go up, the edge, the middle, and the valley. And so that puts PTS in an enviable position, no matter what the world wrought, as far as black swans coming up. And so, I consider myself, like Lou Gehrig, I'm one of the luckiest guys alive. And so, because we're in the right industry, and I do see hard times coming up for the US by 2030. The demographics are going to shift, but AI is going to change the vernacular of the way we run and operate a company and a world. I mean, we're going to see in our lifetimes now trillion-dollar companies. We're going to see billion-dollar companies with less than 100 people. And what is a government? How do you tax that? And so I bet you by 2030, I'd be surprised if 50% Americans are not living on a universal basic income because we just won't be qualified to do the things that need to be done, and that we'll have to figure out how we tax large corporations in order to do that. It's the only way we're going to subsist as a species, at least in the United States.
Yeah, absolutely. The world is evolving at light speed, my friend.
Light speed.
And yeah, and it is interesting every day. What you thought is new is almost obsolete. So
Yeah, it
yeah,
moves quickly.
yeah. Really interesting stuff you're doing, Pete. So the first question I have,
Sure.
so what inspired you to start the business? What was that initial spark where you said, you know what?
That's
We're gonna
great,
do
right?
this.
So, like I played football in high school, I played a little bit of college ball, and when I got through the idea that I was going to be a superstar athlete, I thought about it a little bit, and then the injury happened, and I like to say we plan and God chuckles, but I was born to do this, Jerry. My dad was an entrepreneur. He owned his own mortgage company. He was a mortgage banker. He had the good sense to tell me not to go into that industry, but and then I got married fairly young, and the first time fairly young. But I was very close with my father-in-law, who's since passed. We had a great relationship, and he founded and ran a very large trucking company, Bell Trucking. In fact, I'll say it because his sons run it today. It's a very capable company. So between my dad and my ex-father-in-law, right, the conversation around the dinner table was not around, it was around how to motivate people, how to read balance sheets, how to build culture, and how to build organizations that thrive. So I'm going to say I was born to do this. Now, I did take a hiatus, and so I did go to engineering school. And while I was in engineering school, I designed power supplies for the military industrial complex. And so I started off doing that, and I had secret clearance for a while, and I designed power supplies at all the major defense contractors. And it was during the first two Gulf Wars. But when I left that industry, and I migrated, the first thing I did before I worked with anybody is I started my own company. A company then, it was called Power Technology Sales, which was always a play on my name, Peter Thomas Sacco. The PTS was a little double entendre. And what we were really doing was selling UPSs. So we started as a reseller of UPSs, uninterruptible power supplies, right? When the power goes out, UPSs and batteries backed up the electronics. And the rest, they say, is history. I turned that reseller of UPSs into a full service data center design build company. And it was really at the tutelage of my dad, who thankfully is still alive, retired happily, and my ex-father-in-law.
Okay. Wow. How about, Pete, can you share one or two of the significant challenges you faced in the early stages of building your business?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there are many. I mean, in the beginning, you, you don't know anything. You think you know, right? In fact, I have a little saying right now. When I started my companies in my late 20s and early 30s, right? You marched forward and you worked hard and you did things and you thought you were right. The difference between then and now at the ripe old age of 57, I know I'm right. Now you have the confidence to be able to go forward, but in the beginning, you're never sure. And so the first thing I did was seek those things that I didn't do well, right? And then outsource them. And I learned that from, my dad's. And, as to what, seek help when you need it. And so I aligned myself with great people and great mentors that, I still find mentors to today. I also have mentees, but, some of the challenges we had to overcome were the financial aspect of it, right? You're not well heeled, and so you needed to overcome lack of capital. I hated doing the accounting. I mean, I was literally selling all day, servicing those UPSs at night, and then doing the accounting by moonlight. I remember turning to my then wife, and I said, "Geez, if I have to do this another day, right? I don't think I can do it." And she looked at me, and she said, "Well, why don't you just hire somebody?" And I looked at her like the dog with the little noise, like, because and it dawns on you that geez, that seems so obvious, but not obvious at the same time. And so, sure enough, I hired somebody, and I read the book by Michael Gerber, The E-Myth. Remember that book? And I got to
Absolutely.
tell you, my early career, that helped me so much. It taught me about operations and marketing and sales and pricing and product and all of those things. And I carry that through to today. I maintain a membership at Vistage. I maintain a membership at Abundance 360, which is much more peers thinking like I do on subjects like longevity and AI, right? It's founded by a guy named Peter Diamandis and has members like Tony Robbins and Elon Musk, and so. But Dan Sullivan and Strategic Coach has been influential. I've read all of his books. I'm an avid reader. You have to be. So overcoming those obstacles of running the business, and then later in the career, right? The data center industry changed immeasurably. And so if you take a look at just PTS and Tuva, the data center company's core values, I'm a big core value guy, right? It's learning all the time, adaptability, and forward thinking. As a data center operator, I've had to pivot the company at least twice. And I'm prepared that for whatever the next pivot is, my core group of people will pivot with me because we've done it successfully. And so being able to understand what's happening right now is critical to success.
Yeah, and I'm going to just highlight one thing that you said, and it's so important. And I guess I asked the question, Pete, at what point have you gained enough knowledge that you can operate at maximum level?
Yeah, I don't know. You somewhere along the line, you develop a confidence as to what you're doing. That's not to say that I'm not befronted with some new challenge that I have to solve that I've not solved before. I guess the difference now between now and then when I'm faced with a challenge is, first of all, and I'm going to get a little spiritual on you, I don't make the events of my life my problems. Everything works out. I surrender all the bad and all the good. And that keeps me in the present moment. And if you live like that, you don't suffer, right? I have a big enough network today that if I'm confronted with a problem that I have to solve, I know somebody somewhere that is going to be on my side and who's going to help me solve it. So I'm going to say you have to imbue yourself into the communities with which you'll thrive, right? And so I surround myself with people who are far greater than me. And so they prop me up all the time, and that just makes me a better person.
Yeah, and you've touched on a great point. Let's talk about team a little.
Sure.
Obviously, to be successful, you have to surround yourself with great people. What are your thoughts on team building?
Sure. So, I very much subscribe to the traction methodology that Dan Sullivan talked about of you have to have a visionary and you have to have an integrator or integrators, right? I clearly, if you take me at my heart, what are my superpowers? In fact, I talk about this in the book, right? My superpowers. One, I'm a constant learner. Two, I'm a visionary futurist. Three, I have an insatiable ability to concentrate. Four, I have an ability to facilitate and simplify things. And then lastly, I'm a master storyteller, communicator, mentor, and motivator of human beings. And so that gets to the heart of what makes a great CEO. If you're going to be a great CEO, one, you better have your eye on cash flow, right? That's job one. Two, you better be the master motivator in thing. In fact, they should just take CEO and they should just call you the CRO, the Chief Reminding Officer, because you have to constantly be reminding people of what the vision it is that we are trying to do. And then finally, you have to be that master of culture, right? And you have to establish that culture. What are our core values going to be? I'm a firm believer that every person should have a core value. Every person should have a purpose for living. I call it my massively transformative purpose, a little homage there to Peter Diamandis, a friend and colleague. And you have to have that purpose. And then you need to create a mindset that moves you in that direction, following your core values, that moves you in the direction of your purpose every day. If you lead a life that meets your values and moves in your purpose, you will, live a life of gratitude because you're going to be moving in a good place.
Yeah, and following up on the culture topic, how
Yep.
about work-life balance? How do you maintain that? You're doing a lot of things, my friend.
You have to. Yeah, you
Yeah.
you have to. I'm still an avid, club tennis player. A reasonably golfer. As I mentioned over there, I'm 57 years old currently, but those three little girls back behind over my shoulder, I'm happy to say I'm not their grandfather. I'm their dad. So I've got three girls under the age of 6, 4, and 2. But I've also got a son who's 35, and he's got three kids, 11, 8, and 1. And so, yeah, I'm that guy, right? And I think, like I said, I better love what I do because I'm going to be doing this till I'm 108 years old, right? There's a lot of mouths to feed. But that's the beauty of it is that, it allows me to thrive. How do you tell a 6-year-old daddy's too tired to do anything, right? So, but you know what? It's funny. If you read Dan Buettner's biography on Netflix about blue zones, he has 9 areas of that all the oldest people in the world all have in common. I won't be the spoiler for Dan. Go out and watch Blue Zones because I think it's a fantastic thing. But um, one of them is the point that I was trying to make was, I lost my train of thought again. Give me the question again.
How do you maintain with your
Work-life
busy
balance.
schedule? Yep.
You have to detach. You have to be able to do that. It's an important number to be able to downshift, right? So many CEOs are just so high strung and they don't have the ability to downshift. But if you don't make the time and space to be able to do that, you're going to find yourself overwrought and overworked. Some of the other ones were obvious: exercise, eat, control, but family, faith, spirituality were all contributors to that. But the one that I thought was interesting, the two that I thought were most interesting were community, to imbue yourself in communities that which you can thrive, but also you have to be able to downshift sometimes.
Yeah, yeah, and it's such an important aspect of success, right? And Pete, you exude success with everything that you do.
Thank
But
you.
we talk a lot about work-life balance. I'm sure there will be people who are viewing this that say, I can never do that. I don't have enough time to do all that family stuff. I'm so focused in. So
Yeah,
one last thought on that, my friend.
sure.
What would you tell that person?
Yeah, there's no such thing, right? There's
Mhm.
no such thing. We are the actions of what we do, right? And so if you're not making the time, you're choosing to do that. I would argue that you have to make the time to do that. I am an avid and firm meditator. I teach it, right? Being present in the moment means that I am not controlled by my past and I don't worry about the future. I suck the marrow from the bone in every moment that I am in. And
Mhm.
so when you live life like that, you make the time for all the things that are important. And so it finds a way to work itself out. You just have to do it. There's a lot of people who say they're doing things. There's far few people who are actually doing the things that need to be done.
Well said, well said.
Thank you.
You're doing amazing things, Pete. Again, so what's the future hold?
So
I sense this is just the beginning.
Oh, there's so many good things, right? Uh, PTS companies all have their future. We're in the heyday of them right now. But I have done, some people love to invest in real estate. Some people invest in stocks. Some people bonds, commodities, cryptocurrencies. Yeah, I do all those things as well. But investing in companies and people is the thing that really gets me my juices flowing more than anything. So I've been over my career more now so than early on, an angel investor. So I'm deeply involved in technology. In fact, that's why it says right on my thing, technologist mystic, right? That's kind of the background that I have. It's kind of the theme of the book, right? So besides the construction companies that are in the AI world, I'm a limited partner in other data centers. I'm a limited partner in blockchain companies. I'm a limited partner in hedge funds that trade cryptocurrencies on a regular basis. Web 3.0 companies. In fact, one of the more exciting ones I'm involved in right now, I just founded this company. We're in some capital raise right now. We finished all of the MVP, minimum viable product. It's a sports tech product. It's called Hycon, Hycon. Aim high, become an icon. Hycon.me. I coached football for 20 years. I've had the good fortune to coach 5 kids into the NFL and names that you would know, both at the Pee Wee level and up through high school. In all of those cases, those kids, when I watched them grow and develop, I remember looking at them going, man, if that kid was a stock, I would have bought him, right? But there's no way to buy a human being, right? Or trade even a human being. I mean, yes, I invested in them in that as a humanitarian to help them. Not all of them were in the, capable of going to private schools and things like that. So you did what you could, but you're doing that as a benefactor. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool if a human being could invest in another human being? And so that's what Hycon is. Hycon is a blockchain platform that enables a human being to invest in another human being. How we're adopting it is we can take any high school athlete, create an NFT out of his image, fractionalize it on a blockchain, an NFT, and then sell it to the alumni collectives alongside the NIL movement, name, image, and likeness, right? And so that they can buy that athlete and give that athlete money today in the prospects of them going to school. Now, the platform also enables them to sell merchandise for their brand, develop their brand identity. We've got endorsement deals with over 800 companies so that local and national products could, want those products. People like Nike just don't want LeBron James. They want the local kid, right? And so we got endorsement deals, we got advertising deals. They could sell subscriptions to exclusive content. It's kind of taking the whole crowdfunding and influencer movement and doing it for sports tech. We're starting with high school football, but we think when I raised the capital and I put in place um, a sports-minded general manager president, so if you're out there, I'm looking for one. That when we put that person in place, we think it's going to go well beyond football. We clearly see soccer, we clearly see women's sports, we clearly see international sports, we clearly see beyond sports. We think e-gaming is going to be a big part of this. we really are trying to change the vernacular of here of people investing in people. So that's just another thing that I'm really excited about, and is HiCon. I guess I'll finish as far as the future on one other thing. Right now, I'm starting to put the framework together. Like I said earlier, AI is only at the beginning of what we're going to transform humanity, and it's going to require a lot more data centers. I think what that's going to manifest is that data centers are not just going to be where they are right now in what I say the American pro football cities of the world, and the regional data centers are what I refer to as the college football cities. I think there's going to be data centers in all the American high school football cities of the world. They're going to be smaller, they're going to be more nimble, they're going to be more high performing, right? They're not going to be the giant 100 megawatt, $600 million Google behemoth data centers. They're going to be 2, 3, 4,000 kilowatt data centers, 4 megawatt data centers, but they're going to be in every city in the world, just like the telecommunication pops were. And those data centers, I want to form a company called Gray Wolf Data Centers, raise capital for it, and begin building those data centers all over. In fact, we are in process right now of building one purposeful data center. I own a data center in South Jersey, New Jersey Fiber Exchange. I'm a partner in. We have capacity in that data center. We're right now searching for an AI client that wants to go into there. We can handle up to 4 megawatts of load in that data center. And then I'm building one in Bristol, Connecticut. And so Bristol is a unique place, very high utility rates, but we're using the microgrid company to reduce the cost of electric. And then we're going to build an AI data center. And I hope to attract, an anchor tenant, somebody like, Yale University or Yale University Medical Center or UConn or somebody like that wants to build an AI platform. And so that's going to be Gray Wolf Data Centers.
Just another day in the life of Pete Sacco, right? Just another venture.
From
You
your lips
forgot
to God's ears.
you forgot one thing, my friend. Tell us about the book.
The book. All right. So the book is Living in Bliss, Achieve a Balanced Existence of Mind, Body, and Spirit. And look, I've always been this person, but let's just say this is the new and improved Pete Sacco. It hasn't always been, it hasn't always been like this. We all go through life's tribulations and trials, right? There was definitely a point in my life when I woke up one day and I was massively overweight. The doctor had handed me all my pills and said, keep it up and you're not going to live long. I was unhappily married. I had an estranged son. I had, things in my life that I wished were different. And I did have a successful business career and I was coaching football, so it wasn't all doom and gloom. But I knew there had to be something more because I was unfulfilled and unhappy and unhealthy. And so, I threw that ball up and I said, I have to do something about it. And so the book is really telling the story of the path for me, which ultimately ended in enlightenment. I live a life of bliss. I live a life of bliss. I practice meditation every day to stay present. My core values are presence, purpose, and prosperity. And I don't mean prosperity of wealth. I mean prosperity in all things. And purpose gives me my guiding light that I find myself, that I guide my life. And the presence is having the power to appreciate now. Wisdom for me is realizing the sublime in the mundane, right? We live in an incredible time. Steven Pinker wrote a great book. Bill Gates called it the one book, if he was on an island, he'd gone there. It was called Enlightenment Now. The short answer of the book is, if you had to live at any other time in history, when would you live? If the answer is anything other than right now, you're not just wrong, you're very wrong. We live in an incredible time. And if you could see the sheer amazingness of the time we live in right now, with knowledge that it's only going to get better, right? My little 2-year-old, that little 2-year-old, if nothing else happens in the United States, if nothing else, healthcare and health span and life get changed, the average age in the United States when she's of age will be 115 years old, and the oldest people will be 150. And that's if nothing happens. Ray Kurzweil's talking about we're 10 years away from the health span escape velocity, right? Right now, for every year you live healthfully, you're adding about 3 months to the end of your life. In less than 5 years, for every year that you live healthfully, you'll be adding 3 years to your life. And that's going to happen in a very short time because talk about mindset. I have an exponential mindset. most people live with a linear mindset, but that's not the way the world works. But you know, linear starts out, exponential starts out small and then it ramps up quickly. We are in the exponential times, right? Technology is what governed all generations. My generation X, we invented a lot of the technology. My kids will never know any other life but massive technology. They will never drive a car, right? They will never have a conventional job. They probably will never go to the doctor the way you and I go to the doctor, right? They will never do anything without AI being their companion, and they will be better for it. And so I try to maintain a mindset. That's what living in bliss is about. We all have that. Mankind is about to be on the threshold with AI of transforming himself, having to stop identifying himself with what he does for a living, where he lives, who he lives with, who loves him, who does he love, and he's going to have to find divinity within. And I am living proof that you can surrender all the good and all the bad in your life and to stay present in every moment. And that is the secret to happiness. I tell people all day, if I was any happier, I'd giggle all damn day. And I truly do mean it, right? I live a blessed life, but it hasn't come without working hard at it. And the book is going to serve as a path for me, but I would say, don't do what I do or don't do what I did. Seek for what I sought, and the path will open itself up to you.
Great. So Pete, when can we expect the release of your book?
I'm hoping by the end of the year. I'm not putting any massive. I'm about half done with it right now, but I want to make sure it's done right. It's my first book of this type. Everything else has been a more, finance or more business book. So this is the first book, which is really a trial of love. So I would say the latest will be first quarter of 25.
Great, great. Can't wait
You
to
are
see
going to
it.
find it on Amazon Audible in about a week, though. The artwork is done, and the forward is done, and the back flap is done, and so you'll see it, and you'll be able to pre-order it.
Okay, so once again, the title of the
Living
book,
in Bliss: Achieve a Balanced Existence of Mind, Body, and Spirit.
fantastic. So one last question. First, your positivity just exudes out of you. It's wonderful.
Thank you. That's flattering.
What advice would you, so this is all geared towards entrepreneurs and they are finding their own personal model of success. What advice would you offer these aspiring folks who are just starting their journey?
That's a good question. I would say first, you want to establish, what are you good at, right? What are the things that you call yourself? What do you call your superpowers? I talked about mine before, but everybody's going to have something. And by the way, it's easy. Go back into your youth, find the stories that you grew up with, the stories that you remember first. They're all going to have a message in there of they're going to be a superpower. And then do that. I know so many people that dance well and yet they practice singing. They they do math really well, but they want to be English people, right? Don't do what you're not good at. Do what you're great at, that you don't have to train, you don't have to think about, you don't have to work hard at. The key thing that comes naturally and the thing that gives you joy. So the first thing is find your superpowers. And then when you find your superpowers, be conscious enough to recognize that you need to establish a value system that, again, is going to come from your youth, and build a mindset that moves you in that direction. And then do all of the things that are going to be in the book, by the way, that are going to help you, because that will allow you to thrive. Surround yourself, find yourself a mentor, multiple mentors. If you want to learn something, teach something, right? If you want to learn it, teach it. And then that will teach you more about it. So align yourself in your businesses with somebody who is equal to you, doing your job better. Find two people above you that you aspire to be, and find somebody below you that you can help. And then do that all your career, all the way up.
Yeah, fantastic, Pete. Hey, person's success is staring them in the face. All they need to grab it is grab it, right?
You're right.
Yeah. So we're coming to the close of this interview, but Pete, thank you again for taking the time out of your busy day and telling us about your businesses and all the things you're doing. So how can people learn more about you and your businesses?
Sure. Well, right up here, they're going to be able to scan that QR code, and you could easily find me at petesacco.com. That the links to all you could find me on LinkedIn. It's a fairly extensive travel thing, but it's just Pete at petesacco.com, and you could connect with me in any capacity of the businesses, and I promise I will try to make the time.
Fantastic. And again, Pete, thank you again. What a great interview. I'm feeling energized, my friend.
Well,
It's all good.
then we've
So,
done a good job, Jerry. Thank you for the opportunity. It's been a pleasure, spending time with you.
absolutely. So, to everyone watching, this has been Jerry Covella. This has been From Dream to Reality, a Business Tale podcast. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Have a great day, everyone.